Hello, welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we'll be discussing leadership, business, and human potential, inspiring you to live rich from the inside out. Unlock your creativity, stretch out of your comfort zone, break through your barriers, take inspired action, and achieve epic results. Now, here's your host, two-time best-selling author, speaker, and certified executive coach, Deborah Kosowski.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Millionaire Woman Show, where we talk about leadership, business, and human potential. And I am so excited to share with you today's special guest. I was on his show not too long ago, on his relaunch show, and today I have Joel Boggess. He helps entrepreneurs and leaders get more from themselves so that they can get more from their teams. He's a speaker to call when your office, team, or organization is feeling stuck, unchallenged, or overwhelmed. His popular keynotes and workshop sessions include The Power of Never Giving Up, Triple Your Sales, the unconventional strategy for unbelievable results, Find Your Voice, 3-part path to clarity, confidence, and direction. And his podcast, The Relaunch, that I got a privilege of being on, is named by Podcasters Paradise most inspirational 2 years in a row, 2014, 2015, mentioned in the Huffington Post as being the one of the top 5 shows to tune into for inspiration, and mentioned in Inc. as one of the top 20 business podcasts in 2015. He's a podcast and business columnist and contributor to the Networking Times, Huffington Post, and Success.com. His latest book, Finding Your Voice, hit the #1 spot on Amazon in success and self-esteem categories. Originally from San Antonio, Texas, Joel earned his undergraduate degree at Texas Tech University, an MBA from Amberton University, and he has a master's in counseling. Joel and his wife, Pei, live in Dallas-Fort Worth area. They have a golden retriever and a golden rescue, Bubba and Happy. So without further ado, please welcome not the one and only Joel Boggess. Welcome to the show.
Deborah, this is going to be so much fun. Gosh, you were one of my first guests in that first wave when we launched the relaunch show. And we've been doing that show. My gosh, it's almost been 3 years.
Wow.
And I know time goes by quickly, but I don't remember exactly which number episode that you were, but I do remember it being in well, I wanted to do the best first, right? So
you're really sweet.
it was a lot of fun to have you on, and thanks for having me on your show. You know what? There's no place that I would rather be right now than here with you. So let's have some fun. Been looking forward to this.
Excellent. And I know that our listeners and our viewers are just going to eat all of this up because you always have a way of just leaving those nuggets where people can take them, run with them, and start implementing them into their lives. But I really wanted to know, and I never had a chance to ask you when I was on your show, because it wasn't my turn to ask, is what inspired you to start podcasting?
Okay, now that is a wonderful question, and I really love talking about it. And I started, Deborah, in traditional radio. My gosh, it's been 28 years ago. I was behind the microphone, and also I was in front of the camera on TV. And, well, you're a podcaster like me, so it's just something that gets into your blood. And my goodness, I just had my 48th birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I still have been bitten by that broadcasting thing that is out there. I love sharing stories that bring hope, that bring inspiration, and that bring empowerment, just like you do to your listeners. And it's just, at this point, it's just part of who I am. Being a voice, a broadcaster, podcaster, creator of content, it's just part of who I am.
And that's so cool because I bet you throughout your childhood and all the events that have gone on in your life, there's that been golden thread connecting all those pieces to where you are right now.
Yes, absolutely. And By the way, your episode was number 51. Look that up real quick. If you haven't heard the episode I did, the conversation with Deborah, check it out, relaunchshow.com/51. And it was a lot of fun. And gosh, Deborah, we're up to episode 577.
Holy moly.
Something like that. So it's been a while, but been having a blast doing it. The Relaunch Show is not our first podcast, but it's by far our most successful. And we're at 1.7 million downloads so far. For me, that's a big number, so I'm kind of jazzed about it.
So I'm curious, what are the 3 greatest lessons? I know with over 500 podcasts and other podcast shows, but 3 greatest lessons that you have learned from your guests.
Yeah, that's another wonderful question. And I have a mentor. It's kind of turned into a friend and a mentor to me. And he wrote a phenomenal book that changed the way I looked at business. It's called Becoming a Category of One. And it does exactly what the title promises. It helps you learn how to become a category of one in your business. And I was talking to Joe Calloway is his name. And I was getting ready to launch my most recent book, Finding Your Voice. And I was asking Joe his best ideas and advice for how I could kind of tap people on the shoulder and ask them for a little bit of help in helping me promote and distribute that book and, reach as many people and touch as many people's lives as I could. And I asked Joe, I said, Joe, why would these people, people that are influencers that are at the top of their game, people like you and Deborah Poneman and Marcy and all of our friends, why would these people help me? And Joe said very clearly, he said, because when they were starting out, they needed help. And if you ask for help, don't be cute, be clear in how you ask for help. They will help you because someone helped them. And gosh, he must have given me that advice 3-4 years ago, and it still just rings in my mind. And since then, I've never been hesitant to ask someone who is further along in their game for help. So I think that's lesson number 1. Ask for help. Don't be cute. Be clear in how you want people to help you.
That's really important. What other lessons you got?
I interviewed a fitness competitor on the show one time. Her name was Danny Johnson, Danny J for short. And Danny J was an aerial acrobat at SeaWorld. And she worked with the whales. She worked with Shamu. And if you've ever been to SeaWorld, you can probably picture an acrobat flying through the air. Well, that was her. That was Danny J. And as she was working at SeaWorld in California, she got an infection from the water, and she actually woke up paralyzed and was unable to walk. And she was a 21-year-old young lady at the time, no health insurance, no coverage, single, no money, of course. None of us had money in our 20s, early 20s. So she had to create her own treatment plan. She told her mom, take me to the gym because that's where the healthy people go. And she got on the exercise bicycle in a painful way because she was paralyzed from the waist down. And she would push and pull her legs through that sequence of motion, on the stationary bicycle. And over time, she regained feeling and then the use of her legs. And it was because she was being creative in her approach to treatment. She couldn't afford the doctor. She couldn't afford the therapy. She couldn't afford the extensive, treatment program that could have been available to her had she had resource. But she did have her own grit. And it was the grit that helped her not only regain the use of her legs, but it helped launch her into a brand new career I kind of gave it away, but she is a model and a fitness competitor now, as well as a professional speaker. So that injury, as ugly as it was at the time, it actually turned out to be a gift to her because it helped her launch in a whole new different area of her life and probably discover things that she never even realized that she had. But coming in for a landing on this topic, Rudy Rudiger, the Rudy from the movie Rudy, was on the show, and one of my favorite things that he said, and my fans still remember this like it was very, very recent. And Rudy said, "You got to do the work, dude." And that is a quote that's like Joe's quote, still rings in my ears. And no matter how much visualization, no matter how much journaling, no matter how much praying that you do, and I'm a praying person, Deborah, like you are, and like a lot of listeners are, and I've got a faith component to me, a strong one. But regardless of the amount of praying and all that you do, you got to get in there and get your hands dirty and do the work. And that's what I learned from Rudy, that regardless of the planning and the preparation, you just got to get in there and be willing to take some for the team, take one on the chin from time to time, but just continue to move forward.
Those are very powerful, and I want to thank you for sharing that, because what I've learned is from the guests, I learned so much more by asking the guests the questions, that it does a transformation in my own life by taking those nuggets as well.
You bet, of course.
And
absolutely.
Speaking of transformation, you recently have made a huge transformation yourself. What triggered this?
Yeah, thank you. You are probably talking about my weight loss.
Yes.
And, I just needed to do better in my life. And I knew that if I made some changes, some tweaks in my diet, in the way I carried myself, and in my own self-discipline, it would help me to be better in every aspect of my life, starting with my health, because your health is the platform that drives the other areas of your life. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but it starts with your health, and you've got to be healthy enough to get on a platform, to speak, to coach, to do your podcast, write your book. And so I think that had a lot to do with it right there, that I needed to physically be capable of getting the best from myself. And then it just became a driving force because things started getting better. And at age 25, Deborah, I was 223. And I mentioned I just turned 48 not too long ago. And I'm at about 140 now, give or take a couple. About 17% body fat, which for an old guy like me, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Oh, you're still young. You got lots left in you.
I certainly hope so. From your lips to God's ears.
Straight up.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I know, because I go to the gym and, I'll post pictures of me at the gym and stuff, and people are like, well, why are you doing that? Because there'll be a group of people who say, you know what, that inspires me to go to the gym.
Yep.
And I go to the gym because it helped me keep my head on straight, to challenge myself, focus. And when I'm having a bad day, or even if I'm having a good day, it helps me get stronger mentally.
Sure.
Challenge myself to push beyond limits. And, when you can lift a certain weight and suddenly it seems easy, it's like that comfort zone. So it's a really great analogy of that, how we can stretch ourselves a little bit further each time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's one way to demonstrate that, all things are possible if you just challenge yourself, and you would be amazed. I'm thankfully continue to, push my outer limits in the gym and in other areas as well. And, please, I am not a superhero, but I am someone that demands more from myself just about every single day. Again, not a superhero, so I'm not pushing 100% of the time, 24/7. But when I focus my attention on an activity, and it could be working out, it could be working on a book, it could be developing my next product or my next program. I want to be laser intentional with what I'm working on, and I want it to be better than the last iteration, better than the last workout, better than the last mile.
And that is so important when it comes to whether people are in a leadership position or they're an entrepreneur or business owner, that it's about showing up 100% today, whatever that 100% is on that given day.
Mm-hmm.
And really being your best self is what you're talking about.
And that is actually one of the key messages from my keynoting, from my speaking. There's really two messages. Number one, give 100% of your effort right now. And the second is to never, ever, ever give up. And those are the two things that are musts today for success, is to give your absolute best effort today, not tomorrow, because tomorrow's not guaranteed, and then to move forward anyways, to never give up in your plight. Plight's not the right word, but in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, personal or professional.
And, one of the things that I'm going to dive into your keynotes here in a minute, but I wanted to know what has been the impact on your business since starting podcasting?
Sure. Gosh, I love this question. I've been podcasting for years. This show, Relaunch, has been by far our most successful show. And this show has opened up so many doors to me. And I know you have seen that in your business as well. It's given me the opportunity to get on numerous stages that I wouldn't have had access to without the podcast opening the door for me. And it's also helped me earn business from people that have been guests on the podcast and people that I've met somehow through a podcast meeting of some sort. So to answer your question, it's the new podcasting is the new networking. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it, because I have developed just through podcasting, deepen the relationships of the people that I've connected with.
Oh yeah.
And when they have something coming out, I'll be happy to share it because we've built that relationship, that trust, that rapport. So I do think podcasting is, everyone has a voice and they have a story and a way to ask questions to help build that rapport. But not only that, but to draw the listeners into the guests like yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you completely. Having a podcast has probably been one of the best things that I've done from a marketing perspective because of those earlier things that I've mentioned. I'm going to say this about podcasting, though, and hopefully it will be received in the right way from the people that are listening, your friends and your audience. But podcasting never turned into the ATM machine that I envisioned it becoming or being in the early part, but I didn't let that discourage me. I just looked for another way to make it be worthwhile for me. I didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater because it wasn't printing $100 bills. I just looked for, okay, how can this work? And it worked wonders for me. In the ways that I've mentioned. It's given me opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not been able to, have a successful podcast and invite people on the show, deepen the relationship.
Yeah, it's a big part. And
yep.
People often, and we're going to go into one of your keynotes here, the power of never giving up, to grab my attention. But why do people give up before, you hear people so far it's 3 feet from gold. You hear that saying. Why do you believe people actually give up?
Now that is a wonderful question, and it's a deep question, and I've done a lot of research on that, and there are a variety of ways or a variety of reasons that people give up. But some of the more common reasons that at least I've learned in some of the research that I've done, and that continues to be an ongoing process, is people sometimes don't see that their work or their business is making a difference or matters. And I think that's important, to be investing yourself in something that matters. And if you find a business or an endeavor or a project that really matters to you, and it matters to the greater good, then you definitely have the makings of something that will last and that stick. Other reasons that people give up is because they don't see that their efforts are making a contribution to advance the mission of the organization. That's kind of closely related to the first answer that I gave you. But people want to do things that make a difference. So they need to understand, number one, the mission of the organization that they're working for, or their own organization. And then they also need to understand, Deborah, okay, well, how is my contribution making a difference? Or how is that helping me or the company move the needle toward their desired goal? Those are two right there.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, people want to know that they've contributed, the things that they do really matter.
Without a doubt.
And when they don't, I think that's really where they get that despair.
Well, it's definitely a demotivator if they don't see the result of what they're doing and understand how it contributes to what it is that the company or their business stands for. When I started talking and delivering the Never Give Up message, and that has actually been somewhat of a new thing for me. I've only delivered that message a handful of times, just being honest with you and the listeners. And once I realized that message, never giving up, and how you can keep from giving up, once I realized that was a real issue and a real challenge for a lot of people, that's when I started, through social media and by picking up the phone and making phone calls, that's when I started doing my research. And that's just been, I said I've done a lot of research. I have, but it's all relative because it hasn't been going on for very long. That's somewhat of a new development for me. I just realized that, man, that's really something. If you can provide some ideas and solutions for folks that are faced with, should I give up? Because sometimes that's the right answer, giving up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but not always. And there's a fine line there.
Yeah. Several years ago, I was at a keynote, and sometimes, and I think it's about receiving feedback, whether it be from organizers, whether it be from audiences, whether it be from the people you work with. There's a time when you say, what's the point? And right. when you say, what's the point, is I had this expectation that these people would come at the end of the talk and want to ask questions and everything. And I was working with a coach, and she said, what if I told you 50% of the audience is introverted and they're not going to come say anything to you anyway? The other 50%, they may be extroverted. However, they're going to go hang out and talk with their friends. They're not going to come and talk to you about it. Or, the one that does come talk to you, shouldn't that be enough? How much do you need? And from that feedback alone, I have shifted my own thinking, because there was a time when I thought, maybe I should just give up. Maybe this is not what I should be doing. Yet in my heart of hearts, deep down, I see it as my God calling me to have this message to share. And now I'm like, I can't stop until I make sure I fulfill that mission. But I think it comes to that point of giving up, but really being able to shift the perspective is what is it that I need? And what I was needing was maybe that validation that I was doing a good job, but instead of being able to just trust myself that I was doing a good job and making a difference in at least one person's life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when you in your business or in your work, if you have a traditional job, I think you need to have one or two folks that you can link arms with that can give you that validation and reassurance that you are making a difference. What you do matters, regardless of the job title or the actual function. But when you receive that confirmation from someone else, that goes really, really far. And if it's someone that is in some type of leadership capacity, that makes it even stronger.
And I think we all need to hear that, that we matter.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. And when people don't say anything or they keep it to themselves or, I don't think it's appropriate for me to make a comment or give feedback, I have learned that feedback is like gold. It's a currency. And when we're able to give others feedback, they're open to giving us the feedback that we need and help us get to the next level.
And that's a perfect segue into, go with your instinct. Follow your instinct. If you see Deborah is doing a bang up job and you keep it to yourself, well, you haven't done anyone any good. But if you see Deborah doing a bang up job and you share it with her, two people benefit. You benefit because you're able to bless someone with your graces, and then you benefit because you realize that, my gosh, I am making a difference. Maybe this side of the room didn't care, but gosh, there's someone over here that really connected. And he or she, you don't know their situation. I mean, you could have been the life-saving voice that person needed to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to give you another shout out there, Joe, because the relaunch show, I'm still under the 100 mark for my podcast. So it's going to take me a little bit more time to catch up. But your show, 500 shows in, phenomenal show, which I make sure all of you are listening to the relaunch show, because
thank you.
Through my, you have to make sure there's more to come. So he has so many inspirational guests. What is one thing that you would say about people so that they don't give up when they can see the glimpse, but it seems so hard? What do they need to do to get through that one obstacle?
Sure. The one obstacle, wow, that is a powerful question. And we all have seen people that are so close to striking oil, and they just stop. Number one, you have to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and you have to be on fire, passionate about it, because motivation wears off, but your passion will lead to your commitment. And when you make a commitment to seeing something all the way through, that's the game changer right there. A commitment that you make to yourself is stronger than a promise. There's just a different emotional feel to that. And when you make the commitment, then it just becomes your responsibility to be true to your word, because people are counting on you, especially yourself. Mm-hmm. And there's no magic in what I just said, but it's just being true to your word. But the advice is commit only to the things that really matter and that you're really excited, fired up, and passionate about. Because I shouldn't say we, I'll say me. I've fallen for the trap of overcommitting of myself. And then, when you have to eat crow, and admit that I've overcommitted myself, then I have to, face that risk of, gosh, am I going to let people down? Of course I will, or did. So you just got to be careful what you commit to. But if you can, with a little bit of caution, make sure you commit to only what's most important to you, then I think your drive and your grit will be there when you need it.
And when we talk about commitments, and I really like how you said when you need it, it's going to be there. But I also find that when people will say that they're committed to something, but it's easy for us to commit to other people.
Oh, sure.
And we will cancel the gym or something on our calendar for someone else without holding that firm for ourselves. You want to say a little bit more about that?
I do. And you've got to be true to yourself first. And I personally believe, this is just my opinion, but you got to respect yourself enough to know your own calendar and hold to it. So if you have a date with your husband, wife, or significant other, you've got to hold yourself to that. And no matter what else happens, not a fire, not an accident involving one of your kids, but when someone else calls, to not answer the phone, or when someone else sends a text or an email with a last minute opportunity to go to a game or go somewhere, you just got to shut that out, because being true to yourself might sound selfish, but it is the only way to stay focused, and also to keep yourself from going crazy, because there is no end to the demands that other people will lay on you if you allow them to. Please hear that last part, if you allow them to, because you don't have to respond. And that right there, Deborah, took me a long time to learn, because I want to be liked just like everyone else wants to be liked. And I took that to the extreme, frankly. And I burned myself out trying to be a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of childhood issues that made me want to be a people pleaser for the first half of my life. And you know what? There's probably still some of that in there rattling around. But it was when I learned that I can no longer do that. I have to be a Joel pleaser. And when I'm a Joel pleaser, everyone benefits. Yeah. Or the people that are the closest to me. And when you're a Deborah pleaser, who benefits? Well, your family and the people that you love and care about the most. And it's easy for me to talk about it now, but my gosh, it was hell in the hallway trying to learn that and to make sense of it all.
Yeah. And I'm guilty. I have done that myself at times. And sometimes it's for pleasing, and sometimes it's just to know that I mattered, right? So it goes back to that as well. So one of the most amazing roles for myself as being a coach is to help people find their voice and really go after what they want. So I was really excited to hear about the new title of your latest book, because I think because you do a lot of coaching, Joel, as well, and sharing with your podcast, you help people find their voice regularly. So tell us a little bit more about your new book.
Sure. And thank you so much for asking. The Finding Your Voice book has been a labor of love for me. I've always believed that there was a voice to our heart, a voice coming from our soul. That inner voice that tells you right from wrong, that helps you understand what you were put on this earth to do. And, you might even think of it as God's voice, or the voice that God put inside you. And one of the things that just always broke my heart, Deborah, and still does, is when folks don't truly understand the power of tapping into your inner voice and giving it life. That just breaks my heart, because I see people settle when there's so much more available than that. And when a person finds their voice, they're then empowered to take their work, their home, their family in a direction that best suits them. And working with people over the years, if there's one thing that I've learned is that people have a hunger within themselves to really understand and connect with who they really are deep down inside. And here's the good news: when they make that connection, then they find courage that they didn't know that they had. Mm-hmm. They find clarity that they've always been looking for, wished they had earlier in their life. And then they finally have the direction in their life that they're seeking. Because I think the majority of people are looking for direction, or they're following the direction that they've already discovered. I say the majority of people, maybe that's not true, but I think a lot of people in transition are looking for their next direction.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what I caught from the relaunch show initially, right? Is that you have these people who thought they were on a path, developed a new clarity, new focus, took the courage to take the leap, and moved into the direction of where they wanted to go.
Right. And it's also not all about, but it's also about seasons too. Seasons of a person's life. There is a season in a person's life when she becomes a wife. There's a season in a person's life when she becomes a mother or he becomes a father. There's a season in a person's life when they're in career number 1 or number 2, number 3, so forth. I mean, you used to be a nurse at one point in time in your life. Now, I wasn't there, and there were peaks and valleys like there are in any career, but I have a hunch that you would probably never give up that season because of the things that you've learned from it and the experience that you developed, because it helped you grow into who I'm talking to today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what has held you back in the past from finding your voice? Because now your voice is out there in the world regularly over the several years. How can our listeners push through their barriers to find theirs?
Sure. Okay. Another wonderful question, Deborah. Expectations of others have kept me for years really connecting with who I am on the inside, the real me. And I won't get into my personal trauma, which started at age 5 when I fell off a bridge and ended up in a coma, didn't wake up till age 6, and then had a long recovery lasting into my teenage years. But during that recovery time, and I'm thankful for all of my rescuers, the ones that were actually on scene number 1 and throughout the scenes, throughout several years. But a lot of expectations were laid on me by other people, well-meaning people, peers, parents, teachers. And remember, I'm a people pleaser. So not only was I in recovery, but I was also trying to make people happy at the same time with my recovery. So there's a lot of mixed messages that happened during that time. And it took me a long time to grow out of it. And frankly, I'm still doing it. Growing through confusion that was laid on me earlier seasons in my life. And that's easy to relate with because we all have the mixed messages that we've come through. That through is the key there. But that's what held me back. Now, how can your listeners get in touch with their voice? I would do two things. I would, number 1, get a PhD in who you are, in YOU. That means work with a coach, contact Deborah, contact Poneman, Marcy, some of the experts that can really help you understand who you are on the deep side, understand your personality, your values, your dreams, your passions, and then mobilize some of that information that you learn about yourself. And the reason I recommend that is because you can only look in the mirror so long, and you can only see so much when you're looking in the mirror. But when you tap into another person's vision and sight, boy, it can do wonders right there. So one piece of advice would be, work with a professional that can help you do this. The second thing that you do, and I have my clients do this, I have them ask people around them, people that know them, like them, trust them, that will tell them the truth about some of their best features and some of their enduring qualities. Worked with a mom once, a mother of two, and she asked her husband and her two adult daughters what her best features were and what she was good at. And just the answers she got from her immediate family were unbelievable. And it gave us something to build upon. See, the people that are around us, that we're close to, they also see us in a different light than we see ourselves. And they see what we have to offer and contribute, the things that we might be taking for granted.
That is very, you've just nailed it.
Thank you.
And it's so important for people to see that, sometimes when we're in our own stuff, that we can't see the brilliance that other people see.
That happens all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Tap into that because we're so focused and wondering what other people are thinking.
That's why we hire consultants, coaches, speakers. I know this sounds like I'm doing a commercial, but I firmly believe in this. I've had so many coaches throughout and the course of my life. I've worked with psychologists, I've worked with life coaches, I've worked with career coaches, I've worked with speech coaches. And just being completely honest with you, Deborah, I absolutely love your work and what you're doing. I'm probably going to today pull the trigger and hire a speech writer and a content developer, because I'm now at a point in my speaking career where I've got all of these stories that involve myself, the recovery effort, and so many people that have added value to my life and to my recovery that I want to talk about. I want to talk about them in a meaningful way, but I lived it. I was there, so I couldn't read the label. I was in the jar, but I know other people can see it differently. So I'm probably going to hire Brenda to help me develop the next speech. So just because that is her expertise, weaving together all of those things.
Mm-hmm. And by having that help, like people try to do everything by themselves when they're running a business. And when you have people who specialize in those areas, you can really transform and accelerate your success. My experience working with coaches, it's been very focused work, intense. Sometimes they drive you crazy because they know when to call you on your stuff.
Hate that. But you know what? It makes you better. And
absolutely.
Brenda, and if anyone's interested and needs a speechwriter, just hit me up on social, and I'll put you in touch with Brenda Barbosa. That's who I'm probably going to use. But and she is her fee is X, and I look at that, but then I think about, okay, well, how many man hours, woman hours would it take my wife and I to put together the next speech? Because we've written a lot of our own content, and it's been good, but we're at a level where we need to upgrade it. So could we figure it out ourselves? Sure. Would it take us a lot of man hours, person hours, and take us away from actually building our business? Yeah, it would. That's why we're, probably going to move in that direction of hiring that outside expert so I can focus on what it is that I do best. I can work with her in developing and shaping what needs to be, done. And then I can take that and work with it.
And, I'm just thinking, because I was coaching a client yesterday, and what we were talking about is the question came up was, how do I know someone's going to pay the fee? Like, I need to have a tangible value. And yet when we offer a speech or we do a coaching session with someone, there isn't a physical, tangible piece to it, but there's so much value. And they're thinking, well, is someone going to pay for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a good message can be priceless. And, a speech is one way to deliver that message. I think that, and I think this will add value to your listeners, is whatever your way is to deliver value to your clients and customers, that's what you need to do for the season. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, but for the season. Like right now, we're both podcasters, and that's how we're choosing to deliver our content value and our message. That doesn't mean we have to be podcasters for the rest of our lives, and frankly, we probably won't be. But it's when we decide on a delivery method of just adding value and making someone's life better as a result of it. I think that's the key there. And with speaking, that's just another way to do it. And I'm personally excited about those opportunities. Been doing a lot of it lately. I had a blast. You'll appreciate this, Deborah. I took my dad on the podcast cruise that I went on about 2-3 weeks ago. I was the opening keynote on that deal. So that was fun. And Pei didn't want to go with me. She was like, I've heard you speak. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks. And so, but she gave me the opportunity to take my dad, and I hadn't been anywhere with him in, almost 20 years. So it was a great opportunity for he and I to strengthen our relationship. And spoke last week, doing it again next week, having a blast with it.
Yeah. And I follow you on social media. So for our listeners and our viewers here on YouTube as well, follow Joel Boggess on his Instagram is where I see most of the stuff. And he's on Facebook. Oh,
so you're seeing naked pictures then.
I actually see you having breakfast and coffee with your dad.
Oh, okay.
And the dogs sometimes.
Yeah,
yes, and the gym pictures. Yes, that's why when you're talking about the naked pictures, like, where is he going with this? And, podcast cruises, there are so many opportunities out there speaking. Big final question for you. What is your definition of leadership, and who can be a leader?
I think everyone, what a powerful question too. Everyone has the ability to lead. Because you know what? We all do lead. We all have a circle of influence. Sometimes we lead ourselves. That's the only person that we have currently to lead. So we do a good job leading ourselves. Sometimes we have a family to lead. Sometimes we have a small business to lead. Sometimes it's a big organization to lead. But we all have that ability. Here's the game changer, though. We need to figure out how we can best lead. We all have different personalities, and with different personalities come different leadership styles. It is absolutely important if you want to develop as a leader, grow as a leader. Your listeners do that they understand their personality style so that they can lead to that style using the gifts and talents that they were born with, God's gifts. And when we do that, that puts us ahead of so many people who try to lead based on, well, this is how he does it, so I'm going to do it that way. Or this is how she does it, So I'm just going to do exactly what they do. In theory, it sounds like a great idea to just copy someone else's style. However, in reality, that's going to end up in a train wreck a lot of times because we have different personalities. That's why when I was writing the Finding Your Voice book, I wrote it as a guidebook, not as a rule book. Because if there's one thing that we don't need, it is another rule book. We need to be able, right. We need to understand our style and then use strategies, tips, and tools that are complementary to that particular style.
That is very true. And if you're not staying true to yourself and your personality, then you're not going to show up as the leader that you want to be.
Absolutely.
So how can people get your book and stay in touch with you?
Okay, thank you. And Deborah, thank you for having me on the show. I have started, I think I said this already, but I started in radio 28 years ago. And even with all of that experience and 9 podcasts under my belt, I do not take these invitations for granted. There are a lot of podcasts that your listeners could be listening to right now, and they made a point to listen to us today, and I know you do this also, but I take that very, very personal. So thank you for having me on. I think the best place to get the book is just visit the book's website, and that is fyv.com. fyvbook.com. Stands for Finding Your Voice, but it's shorter. fyvbook.com. And the best place to get in contact with me, I'd actually ask you to just sample the podcast. And the reason that I make that suggestion is, am I the podcaster for you? And is my show the show for you? Frankly, I don't know. But just go to relaunchshow.com/subscribe. Listen to it in however you choose to listen to it on any device, iPhone, Android, your computer, your tablet, and just see if that show will add value to your life. And if it adds value to your life, then great. Put it in your toolbox. Subscribe to it. If you want to have a personal chat, connect with me on social media. All the links are, of course, right there. And then we'll go from there. But just sample the show. And actually, that's advice for you to take and use with any person. Listen to their content first, or read their blog, or watch their video. Make a quick decision. Trust your instinct on whether or not, that's going to be somebody that I want to tune into, listen to, or no, good message, but not for me. I'm going to move on. So.
And I love that you say that. And I'm going to take a moment to share my appreciation with you, because your show was the first time I had ever been on a podcast. And I launched my show in July 1st of 2016, and it was because of you that helped inspire me to do so. So I want to thank you here live on the show, how you have inspired so many people, and I am so grateful to have the opportunity to have you on the show.
Check this out, Deborah. I just pulled up your show. July 8th, 2014 is when that show was released. So we recorded it in that summer 2014.
2 years later, I had my own show just from that, and maybe I should need a little bit of extra fire under the gear, but everything happens at its right time. And I believe that every single person who comes into our lives enters there for a reason. And I am just so grateful to have you here today.
Yeah, Deborah, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, don't be a stranger. Reach out anytime.
All right. Thank you for everyone for listening and tuning in to the Millionaire Woman Show. We would love for you to subscribe to our podcast. Go on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. you name it, you'll find us. And give us a 5-star high five, write a review, let us know, email us, let Joel know that nugget of information that you've gotten that has made you think differently and approach life in a different way, or your business, that it can be the key game changer that changes something for you. And you can email me at Deborah@DeborahKazowski.com. Let me know. And also go to my website at www.deborahkazowski.com to get your free MP3 download about the surefire productivity and performance activities that you could be doing to really get to the next level. Well, everyone, you know what? You need to go out and be the change you wish to see in the world, as Mahatma Gandhi said, and I want you to make today great. Take care, everyone.